Hello, and welcome to the BizDev Podcast, the podcast about developing your business. I'm David Baxter, your host, and I am joined by 90s rapper wannabe Gary Voigt. How's it going, man?
Don't out me like that, man. I'm still trying.
You used to hang out with Young MC, right? Is that right?
No, you said rapper. I don't know who Young MC is.
He's not a rapper? He was a rapper to me. Dear to my heart. I can't remember his song now. Darn it.
Your hip-hop came from the radio.
Oh, for sure. You
probably like Marky Mark, too.
I did enjoy the Funky Bunch. That is true. That is true. I don't know if I would call him a rapper. PM Dawn was definitely not a rapper. So you wanted to talk about TikTok, which, of course, is my favorite topic because I think they're a conspiracy owned by the Chinese government. But go ahead.
Which is exactly why I wanted to talk about them.
Yes.
The latest conspiracy now is that apparently some hacker group called, what do they call themselves? Against the West, posted pictures and claimed that they hacked TikTok, and they have 2.05 billion records of personal data from a 790 gigabyte database, I guess, that they infiltrated and were able to copy and clone. Now, of course,
that's a lot of data.
No, never happened. We didn't see anything. Didn't happen. And the same group says that they've also infiltrated some of the WeChat servers in China. And they're saying, no, nothing to see here.
So, of course, they would say that, right? The Chinese government would never admit that. So, but the question is, are they going to start leaking that stuff? I mean, these guys will either prove it or they won't, right? Either they do have it and they start trickling that stuff out.
Trying to ransom it in some way. I don't know.
Well,
they're not exactly hacktivists. I think they're just more of...
They want a payday. Yeah. They want some Bitcoin. That's got to be a weird thing about a hacker. Is like you get paid in Bitcoin, so you're like, I need $1 million in Bitcoin, and depending on the day,
like
that's either $5.
I'll write you a check right now.
Yeah, I mean that's like one day. What didn't that happen? One of the guys who hacked something a few years ago, they hacked it, stole like $100 or $500 million, some crazy number of Bitcoin, and then the government figured out a way to stop that, steal it back. But by the time they stole it back, it was worth like a third of that. It dropped so bad.
I'm pretty sure there were a couple of big articles about that. It was like a guy in New York and his girlfriend who was like I don't know if was she Russian, like wannabe hip hop person, social media influencer.
Oh, we talked about her. Yeah, we talked about her.
Yeah, I think we did.
She had that funny name. Yeah. I didn't realize that those were the same thing. But yeah, I just thought that was really interesting. Anyway,
I think that's who you're talking about.
So they're talking about, I mean, I didn't read these articles. Because I try to ignore anything TikTok. But from what you're saying, the notes here is they stole their source code too?
Yes.
See, that's a huge deal to them.
Yeah, not just the data, but the way to get the data whenever they want, basically. So,
because every company, and we've talked about this before, but every company nowadays, and I mean big tech company, Facebook, I guess Instagram through that,
like the big thing,
Snapchat, all of them want the concept of TikTok, which is the reels, the ongoing algorithm, blah, blah, blah. That
quickly consumed video content that's just poured in front of you.
Everyone wants that. And and even people who would rather not admit this, but they've all admitted that the algorithm that TikTok has is just so much better than anything. We talked about that a few weeks ago, that Instagram tried to do that and said, look, here's our Instagram clone. I mean, they've had Reels for a while, but they've been a big effort to jump into it deeper, right? Everything was Reels all the time. And everyone revolted because the algorithm was so bad. Like it wasn't everyone who uses TikTok, which again, I don't do, but whenever they say the algorithm, wow, they really do give me amazing videos. Like they seem to really know me. That algorithm is good, which could be creepy as all get out. But if that is in the source code that got stolen, now that's a big deal because then all of those guys will suddenly get much better at their algorithm. But we'll see.
Plus, also, you have to assume that their sample size for that algorithm, I'm sure there's some machine learning in there as well, but their sample size is so huge that they're able to pull from a larger database, and then their content is so quick that it can probably adjust as it goes. So it's not initially going to be the greatest, but you're going to start seeing
it's learning.
similar things, and just based on what you like and don't like, you know what I mean? It'll start feeding you some more of that.
But isn't
stuff.
that? I mean, they all can do that, right? I mean,
just
Instagram has a
quicker.
massive thing.
Yeah, but Instagram is so inundated with advertising and self-promotion that like they're trying to force that algorithm onto you instead of develop the algorithm within your habits, your scrolling. Because when they switched, the first thing everybody said was like, okay, so where are all my friends? Where are the people that I follow? Because they were force feeding you stuff that you had no intention of looking at to begin with. It wasn't like, oh, okay, so if you're
TikTok started from the
skateboard
beginning
clips, here's a 15-minute viewing, feed of people on scooters, rollerblades, roller skates, bicycles, remote control cars. They have wheels, so they're related, but none of them are related. You know what I mean? So it just didn't make sense.
And you signed up for Instagram to follow your buddies or people you aspire, actors, whoever, people you wanted to watch. TikTok's not really
see photographs and stuff from people who are really good at making photographs, like content, like photographers and stuff like that, where it makes sense that you're going to an image sharing platform to see amazing images with the subject matter of things that you like. Instead of...
Well, we'll see. I'm curious. I mean, this is just coming out. We're recording this on a Tuesday because of Labor Day. But this just came out in the last day or so, right, that this hack happened?
Friday is when I believe they said, TikTok might have been hacked. And then the stories were being published, late Friday and early Saturday.
The biggest difference between an American company, I think, and the Chinese company would be American companies would feel obligated because... of various reasons, not the goodness of their heart. Please don't get me wrong, but they would feel obligated. They'll feel obligated to come clean as fast as possible. China will never do that, and again, it's not because the Americans are naturally nicer people. It's they're probably scared of getting sued, but I think China would never do that, and so we'll never get that side of it. So all we can tell, if it really happened. If a settlement happened, for instance, if the TikTok powers that be went to hacker person and said, "Here's $100 million in Bitcoin, go away now," and we might never know if this is real, right? You would never see that. There'd never be an admission of guilt or anything. So the only way that you would know this is real is if this stuff leaks. Yeah. And we'll see. It's very interesting, and that just means use strong passwords, friends. Strong passwords. I am curious. Would I go ahead?
I was going to say, the other thing that kind of struck me as humorous but kind of sad is this article was written by several different people and published everywhere. Might or might not be an actual story, but just because that looming cloud of is TikTok, really just spying on us and giving our information away, that is the story behind can this be a story, which makes up this hacking story. In other words, we don't know for sure. But the idea that it might have happened is a big enough story just because of all the conspiracy around TikTok being owned by a Chinese
My kids are still mad at me about that because I don't let them get on TikTok. That's the one I just don't do it because the stuff in their terms and stuff is, man, I know I've talked about that before. I won't go off on too far. But the stuff in their terms of what they track and watch now I will say, speaking on that same subject, we didn't talk about, sorry, my mind gets fuzzy on some of this stuff. Did we ever talk about the Instagram and the injectable code that this guy uncovered? Did we talk about that?
We talked about Instagram wanting to be more like TikTok, but I don't think we talked about the injectable code. So give us a little brief.
This guy found out doing his own studies that when you click on a link from any Facebook Meta app, Facebook, Instagram, any of this, WhatsApp, anytime you click on a link, and it does not open out into Safari or whatever, right, or Chrome.
It stays
in the app
browser, yeah.
And you are opening. It's complicated, but when you do that, you're still opening a version of Safari, but it's controlled. It's got a wrapper of the app, and in that wrapper, this guy found that all the Facebook Meta apps were injecting code right into every website you visit that allowed them to track every keystroke you do on that website, in any website that you go from that point on in the app's browser.
Within any of the
So if you type in, if you left and went to Safari, you're safe, right? Because they can't cross that barrier.
So if you're still within the Instagram or
if
Facebook
you're in that browser,
correct.
They are tracking literally. So if you bought something from them and you typed in your credit card number, they have it. Now, I'm not saying Facebook is going to go steal it and go run your credit card up. It's just they're tracking everything. And that was a huge thing. It was a couple weeks ago, I guess I read that. That's an American company, and they're doing some super skeezy stuff. And I'm surprised Apple didn't just get all really cranky about that, because it's pretty scuzzy. But that's worth it. We can find an article that I found it on that.
Is that what the Apple's privacy stopped allowing, or is that what it blocks?
No, what they blocked. Right? No, it doesn't block that. So Facebook, in their last quarterly earnings reported that they lost $10 billion with a B because Apple flipped the switch. What Apple did, they turned on a switch that you have to turn on. Well, they're going to ask you. It's not even just a hidden switch. It's going to ask you over and over again. You've seen this if you've been using Apple products in the last year. Is this company is tracking you? Do you want to let them? And you could say no, and then you can go into your settings and say permanently no, and then they stop asking you the question. And what that does is when you were on a Facebook app and you clicked on something, Facebook dropped a little thing in your memory called a cookie. And that cookie had a unique code in it that if you went to another website that wasn't a Facebook website, you went to something else, even on Safari, it wasn't just in the app like I was talking about before. If you went to another website in Safari, another website would put another cookie. And Facebook had technology that would link all these cookies and they would allow you to follow you from one app to the next, all over. Because Facebook, anything that's Facebook logins, any Facebook pixels, any Google pixels, they all do this. And it allows them, they call them like super cookies or something. And they start making these profiles about you. It's not really, you're Gary Voigt. That's not what they care about. They care about you are a white dude who's 50,000 years old and who likes skater. Who likes skater stuff and bad songs and whatever. They're building an accurate profile on you, and because they're going to take other people that are just like you, who do like bad rap, and put it together in a whole profile. And that profile of 5 people just like you, because seriously, I'm on a roll. And they take all those and then they say you're going to like this ad. And that's how they do it. And that's how Facebook has made gazillions of dollars, because it's very good, right? You go to this website and wow, I was just thinking about that. That's because they are tracking the crud out of you. Now, Apple prevented them from doing that anymore, and they lost $10 billion. So in one quarter, mind you, $10 billion. I'm all for it. That's one of the reasons I like Apple, but I'm afraid they're going to start getting less and less privacy focused because they want more money too. But that's a different conversation.
We kind of talked about how they're going to start introducing advertising into their native
more and more ads
too.
But yeah, it's really interesting. I'm curious in the coming weeks, what do we find out about TikTok? It's worth. If you're listening to us and you want to hear it, we'll talk about it again, because I can always talk about Facebook.
If there's an update to this story, we'll probably bring it up again.
So I was listening to a podcast a week ago, and it was The Daily. It's not a secret. It was a great podcast. If you're not listening to the New York Times Daily podcast, it's good stuff. But they were talking about workplace surveillance. Have you ever heard that term before?
Yeah, I've heard those stories of keystroke recorders and you have to log in your time in the morning on a video. It'll turn on your webcam and kind of check up on you during the day to make sure you're at your place, especially if you're working from home. You have to.
So back in the day, and I say that when I started working, a few places would monitor, and what that generally meant was, I'm going to read your emails. Anything work related is mine, right? That's some bosses will restrict.
That's
on
kind of understood, basically. If it's
a work email that someone can read it,
they have to be able to respond to it or be responsible for it, so they can check it.
And there were other things, but it was not really all that invasive. Nowadays,
that was more of this woman cover themselves, not an actual actively surveilling you.
Sure. So the story in the podcast was this lady who'd been hired by a company. She was going to be an executive, and she was going to make $200,000 a year. Good money, high position. And she started getting her paychecks, and she noticed that they were less than she expected them to be. And so come to find out that her company had installed software that every 10 minutes it would take a picture of her, a screenshot, not of her, a screenshot of the monitor. And if she wasn't working on work, meaning she was on Facebook or her personal email or whatever, if she wasn't working on work stuff, then she would not get paid for those 10 minutes. So if she had worked 9.5 minutes and that screenshot took at the wrong time, she lost all 10 minutes. And so that's what was happening. And there's lots of ways of doing that, but that was what her company was doing.
This was not explained to her?
Yeah, but great question. But a lot of times, I mean, I didn't know. I was working at a company years ago that our IT director was reading all of our emails. I think he just enjoyed it. We were a small company, way before big.
Gave him some power.
And yeah, I mean, a lot of IT guys will really love that, and I can read all your emails because I'm the administrator, right? That's a power trip for a lot of those guys. But if they do surveillance, it's probably buried in so far in the employee handbook that you probably never notice it. But I'm sure it's out there somewhere because legally they probably have to explain it. But she had no idea that this was the case for whatever reason, whether that was her ignorance or not following up and reading the handbook, or they were hiding it really well. I don't know. But that's becoming more and more common. Like they were talking about in New York, the subway workers, not the guys in the stations, but the support staff, the managers and the IT staff and all the other people who make the subway work, they wanted to work from home. As the pandemic ended, they liked working from home, and they're like, I don't need to be in an office. I'm programming whatever, or I'm doing this, that, and the other, and I never need to leave my house. And so their union fought with the New York Transit Association or whatever, and basically said, okay, you can work from home 2 days a week if you agreed to be monitored all days. So even when you're at work, you're being monitored.
For the entire
So they have those same sorts of stuff for the whole day. And that what they want to do is they want to see whether or not you're working. And there's lots of, I mean, the podcast was really talking about, is this right? Is this wrong? I'll go on the record saying I think that's horrible. I don't think, I mean, we've been remote for a long time. We talk about remote culture. We talk about that. That's a big part of who we are. And I think if you want to kill your remote culture faster than anything, it's why don't you monitor them? I mean, seriously.
As soon as you show distrust in an employee before they have a chance to even earn, it's immediately just poisoning that field. I mean, now I'm nervous. 'Cause one of the things they brought up is a lot of times, especially like someone like my job, a lot of what I do isn't on the computer, right? My job is to talk to other developers and, and chat with them and meet with clients and be on the phone. And my computer might not be active for 30 minutes to an hour easily. And I'm doing probably the most important part of my job. That's what the woman on the podcast was arguing. And it's true for me too. My job is to not necessarily be anything on the computer. If I'm on the phone with a client for 30 minutes, if I didn't get paid for that 30 minutes, that would be really wrong. Right? Yeah, and at an executive level,
I know
she's not getting paid to just sit there and type away and create drafts.
Yeah, you're not.
She's probably doing a little bit more.
That's right. But I think even for a developer, and then they're code warriors. They live at their computers. But I know from experience that most developers, if you get 4 hours of really good coding in an 8-hour period, you are above average. It takes a lot of mental energy, and they have to take breaks. They have to, and it's not like I'm giving them breaks every 15 minutes or something like that. It's just your brain gets tired. If you're working 8 hours a day and you're coding for that full 8 hours without hardly any breaks, you're going to burn out. You just are. And
I was going to say, if you did that with me, the screenshots with me, if take a picture, you'll see my Spotify and Slack up, not moving while I'm sketching out ideas and stuff like that. And then
sure,
there's no way you do it.
Yeah, you wouldn't see it. And I think even the IT guy reading emails, it has really irked me. You hired me, especially if you're a high qualified worker. I mean, I get if I am hiring, a guy who drives a truck and I want to track that truck. I don't have like UPS or whatever. I don't have a problem with that necessarily. Amazon, sure, they all do it.
They track.
But even my friend,
nonstop.
He's got vans. He's got a dozen vans that are around the city doing their job, and he tracks them all. Yeah. But I don't have a problem with that. To me, that's like tracking your equipment. The truck is equipment. You got to know what it's, and you kind of get it you kind of know if they're wandering off and driving places they're not supposed to drive or that kind of thing. But if you had a camera in the truck, which is what I would equate this to, I think you've crossed the line.
Yeah.
Like now you're monitoring the person, not the activity of the person. To me, a developer or any white collar worker or any, someone who sits at the keyboard, they have a product that they're supposed to be producing. And that's how you rate them, right? If you have a guy who's super talented and can do 8 hours of work in 2 hours, are you really mad about that?
Really? Or if he can find a way to solve a complex problem, if it takes him 8 hours to think about how to do it better, and then that fix saves, 16 to another 24 hours of actual work for future, you know what I mean?
Sure.
You can't. Yeah, it would be hard for someone who doesn't do what they do to sit there monitoring them efficiently, like say, well, they were either working or slacking. I'm going to make that judgment call, not based on his output, but just based on my opinion of what I'm seeing on his screen or on his webcam.
Well, what's even crazier is it's AI and machine learning that's determining whether or not they're working. Right? I mean, it's not like a human's going, oh, that 10 minutes is bad, that 10 minutes is bad, that 10 minutes is bad. No one's doing that. That's a waste of huge human effort. It's a machine doing that.
How does a company put someone in that high of a position and then treat them like that? That just seems... Yeah. That seems like a mistake on their part to even let someone into that kind of a position if they immediately assume that they're slacking off and not working. You know what I mean? It's like, we're going to promote
Well, it was funny because but
we don't trust you to do your job.
A lot of blue-collar workers are now like, yeah, duh, we've been dealing with this for years. Now the white-collar management guys are getting monitored now, and they're throwing a fit because they're like, hey, for all the reasons we're just saying, but the blue-collar guys, the guys in the trucks and digging the holes, well, you can't monitor someone digging holes, but you know what I mean. The call centers is really where this came about. Is call centers, they wanted to know how many minutes they were on the phone and blah, blah, blah. So they monitored all of that, and that's how you got paid. And that's where this stemmed from, and it got more and more. But it's funny because now the managers are the ones tracking, and they're the ones mad, even though they've been tracking their people for a decade. So it's kind of just desserts. Let's just not track people. If you can't trust your people, I mean, okay, the business owner in me is saying, well, there is a level of worker that, the guy who's don't show up half the time. I mean, I got guys who run companies, and it's like this. We have 300% turnover rate every 6 months because people just don't show up because they don't want to dig the ditch.
There's industries that have to deal with that all the time. Yeah. Yeah,
and that's so. In that case, maybe at that low of a level, maybe you have to do something. I don't know. I hate to sound like that. Like, oh, you're this class of person, therefore you should get monitored. That's not what I'm saying. But I understand as a business owner, if you have 300% turnover, you've got to do something. I got to know whether, to prepare myself, is this guy going to show up? No? Okay, then I got to figure that out as fast as possible. Yeah. I don't know how you do that. I don't know the line there. But I do think if you're an executive and you're hiring me to be an executive, a lot of trust is involved. And if you're having to monitor my keystrokes, there's something way off there. It's just something. So what's funny is my computers, like I buy my computers for my guys and I ship them straight to their house. Now, that's probably not great. I've had someone steal one of my computers when they quit. But when I ship them, I never see them. Like, I'm not putting any bloatware on them because I never even see the computer. Like, they get it straight out of the box. It's in the Apple box or whatever. We allow them to have either Mac or PC. But so I don't even see that. But where's that line? I don't know.
Now, I would say the only line in that situation is like, hey, this is a work computer, so if you do put personal stuff on there or whatever, in the event that we need to return it or whatever, take all your stuff off of it.
Yeah, I mean, I expect, just like every other person on the planet, if you have a laptop, especially if it's the best laptop you have in your house, that's the one you're going to use the most.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't, and of course they're going to use it for personal stuff. It's like, it's weird. When I was setting up the business, like, a car, for instance, according to the IRS, if the company buys a car, then that has to be driven 80% for work purposes only, or it's considered a fringe benefit. So you have to track miles and do all of this stuff just to get credit for that. And I didn't want to keep track of that, honestly. So when I was, long story short, when I first started the company, I was driving a 2003 Toyota Corolla, and it was not great. This was in 2013, so it was not a new car. and I was driving it, and I said when the company can't afford it, and it was just me at the time, I didn't have any employees, the company was going to buy a car for me. That was my reward when I got to a certain revenue, and it bought me a Camaro.
A goal that you set for yourself.
That was a goal for myself. And so that's where I learned all this. So the company didn't actually buy the car. I bought the car, and the company gives me money to pay for said car. That was how we did that through distribution. Anyway, but it was interesting, all of that stuff. And that's like, I say all that because it's like the government's monitoring you in their own way. Because you're going to say that's business. And I get that because, again, people cheat taxes all the time. And that could be a whole other podcast episode, and not that I'm an expert to talk about it, but I know a lot of business owners, and I know a lot of business owners that go to the edge of what is legal and not legal. When it comes to business owners, there's a lot of gray of what you can and cannot do to your taxes.
Some of them find it a point of pride to see how far they can go without
how far. And if you find a creative accountant,
technically it's legal.
Yeah. Yeah, I've heard that phrase a lot. If you find a creative accountant or an accountant that's fine with the gray, you can get away with just insanity. So when I started Big Pixel, I purposefully looked for an accountant that wasn't going to play in the gray because I didn't want to deal with any of that. I want to pay legally the least amount of taxes that I should have to pay. So by doing regular things, but I don't want to claim this and claim that and do this trick and do that trick. I don't have any interest in that.
Well, there's a difference between, you can claim things that are actual business expenses like new equipment, like you were saying, but you don't want to go down into where it's like technically like, really the coffee stirrers that you put next to your coffee maker, you bought one package, but you're going to claim that you bought 50 packages, like that kind of gray area type stuff.
Yeah, that kind of stuff. Yeah.
But it's tough. Of course, you want to. It's not that you want to pay as little as possible. You want to pay what you're actually supposed to. But you don't want to also get, more taken from you that you necessarily don't have to pay just because you didn't feel like dealing with it or looking into it. But then you don't want to be the guy, that's paying the minimal amount possible without being hauled to jail, knowing that you're one audit away from.
You don't have to be in the gray. But you do have to have a good accountant. Because if you do your own accountants,
unless you're rich enough to hire really good tax lawyers that do that for a living,
then things get really complicated.
You pay no taxes and it's fine because it's savvy business.
I think, but you have to be careful when you're hiring if you're a new business owner, which is a lot of people who are listening to this. If you're a new business owner, you're tempted to save money by doing your own taxes. I don't know how we got here, but I'll finish this statement. You're tempted to do your own taxes to save yourself some money. But if you do that, you very well might overpay taxes dramatically. And that can really bite you. That can really, you're paying things that you don't need to pay because you don't know any better because businesses are different than personal. I will say our first year, so when I started Big Pixel, I left my company that I was working for, and I promised them I would not steal any clients. And so I did. So when I left, I had a client of theirs found out about me, so I had to do a deal to buy that company from my previous employer. And so that was great. That's what got me on my feet. But 9 months later, they were done. They were finished. We had done their app, and they were finished. And I had no other clients. And because all I had done was work for them, right? And so our first anniversary, I was making a resume to get another job. I thought Big Pixel was done. And the only thing that saved me, and I would call it providence, but the only thing that saved me is I was one of those guys who grossly overpaid his taxes. I had paid $15,000 too much in taxes, and that came back to me as a refund. And at the time, that was enough for me to live for 3 more months.
That's a second chance, yeah.
There was a second chance. And by the time I got through that 3 months, we had found more clients, and we were able to survive. And so it was crazy. That was a crazy year. So when I understand the first year out of a new business sucks, I totally understand it. But so it can go both ways. But don't overpay your taxes. I don't know how we got here.
And don't monitor your employees unnecessarily.
And don't monitor your employees. I said full circle. Full circle. No, pay your taxes, everybody, and don't monitor your employees. But I do think it's tempting, right? Every employer is going to have that temptation. Do I monitor my people? Do I maximize their efficiency? If those are the questions running through your mind, then my question is, did you hire the right people?
There it is.
That's where I would
say lean. When I was still in school for design, and I was actually working as a paid intern in an agency, and then after that I went to a publishing company. It was a small publishing company, and this was right at the time when, I guess you could say, print promotions were kind of going a little bit more down and digital was going more up, but they were not willing to make any changes. So a lot of their advertising clients with this magazine that they were doing were starting to, scale back their advertising. So they came up with the idea that they were going to supplement that with promotional items by becoming a member of a group or a network that sells promotional items that you can put your logo and your name on or whatever at wholesale prices. So then they were like, so now you have to build us a website for this and a website for that, and you have to do this magazine, and you have to do this, and you have to start taking in, all these logos. You're going to have to redraw them in vector because they're all just garbage anyways, and then we're going to start doing that. So there was like a ton of this different work coming my way, and I'm like, and my pay increase is what? And they're like, oh, no. We're just going to monitor your time more efficiently. I'm like, what do you mean you're going to monitor my time? So their proposal to me was, well, you're going to clock in at 8:30, and then from 8:30 to 10:30, you're going to work on this. And then from 10:30 to 12:30, you're going to work on this. And then you get a half-hour lunch. And then when you come back at 1, from 1 to this, you're going to work on this. And they mapped out my day, and they were said, and we'll come in to remind you when it's time to switch. Yeah.
That's how all good creative work is done.
That was their, yeah. It's so they technically weren't monitoring me like what I was doing on the computer or design, but they were over my shoulder every single day for quite some time. And every single day when I got home, I was emailing my resume to anyone else that would give me a job. That was the most annoying way to spend a day, is knowing that someone's going to harp over you minute by minute to see how productive you can be because they've made poor business decisions.
But it's interesting. When we've used Upwork for contractors, they have the option, and they actually not only have the option, they push the option pretty hard to do the 10-minute screenshot thing. Right. And they will take a person. So if you have a contractor who's doing hourly work for you, they will monitor their screens and they will take this screenshots to show that the time that they're billing you, is productive time. And I always turn that off and let them bill me whatever time they say they're going to bill me, because we've had conversations of how long this should take, and that's what I'm expecting anyways.
Yeah, that's usually negotiated up front. Is like, for this project, we expect this amount of time and this to be
100 hours,
within that.
50 hours, whatever. They estimate, they tell me how many hours. And if they're like, oh, it's 200 hours, whoa, now we have to talk. But yeah, but Upwork's been doing that for years and years, and I thought that was really wild. But I guess that was back. Well, they still probably are mostly offshore, but which is why it's so hard for us to find people. But I would guess it gives people peace of mind that the people over in Ukraine or India or wherever they're hiring from are actually working. I still find that to be pretty degrading, but because again, like you said, creative work, which is a very broad term, but I would say coding is a creative work as well. You can't do your best work when you feel the pressure of monitoring. You just can't. It's that simple.
Agreed.
And so don't hire the person. What is it? Quick to fire, slow to hire. That's the phrase I've heard. That's true. Now, nowadays I would say slow to hire, slow to fire, because it's really hard to replace people right now. But generally speaking, yeah, hire the right people. Spend that time. I will tell you, when we've been hiring, there's such a temptation to just fill the position. I need this work. The reason I'm hiring is because I need this work being done. And the longer it takes, the less that work is being done, right? We went through this just recently when we hired Ryan. And it was such a temptation, I fought with myself over and over and over again until we finally found the right guy. And it's great. He's been great. Hi, Ryan. But
yeah, that seemed to pay off instead of just filling the seat with the right person.
Yeah, because you can always find a contractor or somebody who will get the job, quote unquote, done. But there are more goals than that, and our goal is to build the culture.
All right, so to walk us out of this one, I wanted to do something fun. We haven't been able to do a fun outro in a while, so I wanted to make sure we got to this one because one of my favorite animated series, and I know you liked it too, Arcane, they won an Emmy Award for animation. And I cannot justifiably say that any animation I've seen in the last year has been better than the animation in Arcane. And I was a big fan of the animation from Marvel's What If series. Like we talked about that, but Arcane's animation was just so beautiful and worked so well with the story. And so definitely deserved winning. And they did beat out Marvel, and they did beat out Disney shows, and they, you know, popular animated series like Bob's Burgers and Simpsons and stuff like that, Rick and Morty.
Well, what is the, and I'm ignorant on this, what is, and maybe there's not one answer to this, what are they rewarding? Is it because you did something new and exciting in animation, or you made a really funny movie in animation, or a very poignant movie in animation, or any of the above? Like what is it typically given
it
for?
Would be, well, the awards for outstanding animated program, so it's not technically the drawing. You know what I mean? It's not the quality of the actual drawing, but it is a combination of the story being told, the use of animation to tell that story, the way the animation is formed to convey the mood of that story, and how artistic and creative. Like, did they break new bounds? Animation is animation, but did they break bounds in the way they kind of cut different styles of animations together? Kind of like Enter the Spider-Verse, where they had different styles of animation. That was the one that came to signify the different styles of comics.
Did that win?
Well, that's
back in the day.
This is for animated series, but I'm not sure.
Did they win an Oscar for that? Because the only when you said that, like
something, because that was
Arcane was the only other movie that to me goes to the level that Arcane did, where you're just in awe of what's happening on the screen in terms of animation, was Spider-Verse. Yeah. Like that movie was, you're just watching that going, I've never seen that before.
The bar so high for, and I think Arcane's probably the only thing I've seen since there that matched that level, if not maybe even exceeded it a little bit. But
now I saw a preview. We went and saw the DC Super Pets. We were bored and we went to see DC Super. It's cute. The rest of my family hated it. Moving on. They had a preview for a new Puss in Boots movie, which I have no interest in watching.
Yeah, I mean, that's like another Minions movie. I do not care.
Yeah, no, shoot me in the face. But watch the trailer of the Puss in Boots movie, because the art style is really cool.
Okay.
Like it's not like Shrek, right, where the realistic Pixar-y kind of bubble people. It's more of a hand-drawn look, very similar to. It's got a style, like it's a lot like What If, kind of, but more friendly. And, you know, that was really kind of dark. But watch the trailer, because, I mean, again, I have no interest in seeing the movie, but the art style is like, that's pretty cool. They do a pretty good job. Even though it wasn't enough to make me watch it. I won't watch that movie. But it is cool. It's worth checking out that trailer, because it's nice to see animators off the leash, right? Because movies oftentimes, Pixar set the tone for the last 20 years of animation. And most movies look like Pixar movies.
Yeah,
and,
I would
which
say
is fine.
Pixar, Sony, and DreamWorks have been kind of battling back and forth, but Pixar has been the top for many years.
Well, they just, I mean, a human, especially if you have a human character, Pixar generally wins, right? You've got the bubble people. Because if you go too realistic, then you get the uncanny valley and people freak out and they don't enjoy it.
Yeah, it's
so Pixar's found this line, right?
Yeah.
I mean, let's make them look like action figures, and people will just go with it, and that's worked very, very well. So when you see something like Spider-Verse and Arcane, where it's like, this is a painting come to life. And I think What If was a good example too. It's like there's a painting style. Like I know What If was copying some painter, like an actual painter from like the 20s or something, where he did this very specific style. Like, we love that. And so they did the whole thing like that. And it's
the way they used lighting and composition in that is every scene, and I've said this before about What If, but it rings even more true in Arcane. Like you said, it doesn't even matter what they're saying or what the story is. Just frame by frame, everything is just beautiful to look at. But then when you add in the story and the way the characters are played and the dialogue between them, like, it's nothing but engaging. If you find yourself looking at the screen for the imagery that you're like, wait, what were they saying? You almost stop paying
'Cause
attention to the
you're
story
still taking
because
it
you're
all
just
in.
enamored by the visuals. Yeah. So definitely well deserved. And if you haven't watched Arcane, go see it. It's on Netflix. It's incredible. You'll love it.
It's amazing. Yeah, even if you're not into League of Legends.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I've never once seen or played that video game before. Love it, Arcane.
Sure. Yeah. Still good. Cool. All right. So let's end it on that note. And so go see Arcane. And you should email us at hello@thebigpixel.net if you want to tell Gary how silly he looks or any other good questions. Those are all good
I look
questions.
exactly like the Avatar Hunter About Us page today. So
It's true. You look, except your eyes are not X's, because that would be creepy. But that's how you can get a hold of us. If you have questions, comments, snide remarks, feel free to email us or get us on social. Where are we on social, Gary?
Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. Yeah.
All righty. We'll see you guys next time. Have a good one.